DCP Player free. Get it now from digital.net.au.
And thinking about that, if that pivot point means that 10 years from now, we actually have different kinds of projectors, laser projectors, projectors that are more capable with HDR capabilities and wider color gamut. Is that where we stop, just the projectors? The media block change? Have we changed other things that we've been kind of holding sacred until now?
I think you change it all.
Yeah, I agree. I think you change it all. I mean, I think that we're just at the beginning of a more immersive sound experience. I think everybody in the home has realized if they upgrade their sound, it's better, than upgrading their flat panel TV set. I mean, how do you make it so that when you get in there that you're completely taken away from the seat, that you're sitting in? Is that bigger screens? Is it 360 degrees? I mean, remember all the old stuff, 360, everybody laughs now, but you look at the virtual reality, this is like the third time for virtual reality. I mean, if somebody, but now with the ability of technology to kind of build those experiences, I mean, there's a startup now where I live where they're doing film, where they're going to do a 360 camera, and that's what they're going to shoot everything in. They're going to try to finance some films that way and bring them out on, go straight to, virtual reality. Obviously, it's immature there, but I think the theater will keep up. I think the theater has to keep up.
Yeah, they may laugh at us for trying to pump light from the back of the room up to a big screen, right? When you just throw it up there someday in the front, you just show it from an emissive system in the front instead of a reflective system off the screen. So these are all the things that could be possibly sometime in the future.
I also know that, the controversial thing is the second screen in the movie theater. People, but I think at some level that's just an inevitability. I mean, the same way, if you were in Vegas, 20 years ago, you weren't allowed to use your cell phone and walk through there, it's just, I don't know, I grew up in the city, in New York City, and when I was a kid, everybody, participated with the movie. And now I think, with multiple screens and stuff like that, the notion of participating with the movies can actually be brought to bear by creators.
I, for one, am looking forward when I sit in the theater seeing a whole bunch of iPad screens in front of me.
I understand that. I get that. But how many people who at home sit there without just watching? I mean, I think it's, I think there might be, two types of, there are people who participate and people who just sit back. I think participation is actually going to be key. And that's how a theater environment expands and becomes something better than your home. I mean, I bet you 10 years from now, your home theater is going to be unbelievable. And therefore, how do I drag you out? You're going to be 10 years older. How am I dragging you to the theater? I think you have to have something else.
I think you have to have a big immersive screen.
At least one.
I also think nothing is ubiquitous. I think, the Nightmare Before Christmas second screen event, people went in knowing what that was and what they were getting into. It doesn't mean suddenly all movies will be second screen events, because we all know, we've all read the articles where a fight breaks out because some guy got mad at somebody texting during a movie theater, or a movie screen. So not all people want to see those second illumination devices.
No, I agree with you. I'm just saying that, but if we're going 10 years down the road, okay, there is an aging population in America, so therefore, and actually in a lot of other countries in Eastern Europe and Japan, what is the experience going to be that brings them in? Maybe it is the old traditional experience. What is going to bring an 8-year-old today, who's now 18 years old, into the theater? I think it's got to be a different experience. And maybe it's not second screen the way we think of it, or it's a special cut of the movie that's in the theaters, or even a participatory live event, or where, Chris Cookson brought up, maybe the story morphs, based on the audience, there, and the sentiment of the audience. Those are the things that are going to be compelling to be in a social environment.
You're sensing through your seats that you're afraid, so we'll make you more afraid.
The choose your own adventure in theaters has been tried many times and never quite stood up. Because I think you've got 6,000 years of storytelling where people are sitting around a campfire, they don't suddenly go to the person telling the story, hold on a second, now I want you to tell the story this direction. It's because me, as what Chris is talking about, it's compelling storytelling that actually is pulling you along through the story, and you're riveted to the story.
Okay, but let's look at the music industry right now. if you ask, for up until the last 5 years, until like EDC, electronic dance music, came out, it was all about having bands playing on the stage. Now you look at the most happening, most exciting thing in music. It's DJs up there doing mixes with live dancers around them, and with a lot of other things that make it an immersive experience in a way that is completely different than the old jazz club that we all grew up with. So I do think that there needs to be change, and we're talking 10 years from now, not 5 years.
I was talking 7.5.
David,
I'm
why
with you
actually,
though. I would rather go see a great theater, like the great sound and great, nobody texting from them.
do live performers come with IMAX's next projectors?
Live performance? We've done live performance.
David gets his guitar up there. It's so embarrassing.
Hans Zimmer, we've done live orchestra in front of the IMAX screen, and we're considering doing that again, maybe.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, that's obviously a destination movie now on its heroes, right? Seeing the score perform. I live in Palo Alto, and we have live organist plays a lot sometimes down at the old theater there. That's like David Packard. Yeah, from David Packard. And you know what? It actually changes the experience. It truly changes the experience.
I'm going to delve back into technical stuff. So one of the favorite topics of Bob's is 2K enough?
Enough for what?
Depends on if they're serving alcohol at the concession center.
The most important is what I mentioned earlier. The most important is what you're capturing at, which also complements what David was saying. With IMAX being the ultimate Uber capture medium, because what's more important is at the headwaters of the process. You want to capture as high a resolution as you can possibly. My disappointment when I was that thing I talked about with Bill Kinder earlier, I was consulting for Sony at the time. And I was, the whole point, I was there to help them get really good elements to show off the 4K projector. And what I saw was, oh my God, the 2K projector looks effectively in that environment, and David's right, probably contrast, and it had a lot to do with brightness, but in that environment, which is the Entertainment Technology Council's Digital Cinema Lab, it was a pretty tweaked, spot-on theater. A 4K master on a 2K projector looked, for all intents and purposes, as good as the 4K projector. And that's my concern is for exhibitors, because we're not in the medical imaging business. Do we burden the theater owners with having to put in 8K projections when actually, right now, what audience members are walking out of Gravity, Hunger Games, name your movie, and saying, oh, I can't handle that 2K projector anymore. They're not even conscious of it.
To get to the
1570 though was an example of high resolution in the cinema on film. So that was your company's.
But I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think people tend to always want to categorize things and put resolution in one pocket and high dynamic range or dynamic range in another one. They are married together. You cannot separate these two. So we need to stop talking, is it resolution, is it dynamic range, and talk about the whole complete thing, because look at that contrast sensitivity slide. You see it right there in black and white.
It's the modulation transfer function.
Exactly.
And on top of that,
MTF.
as we go to this higher dynamic range, higher contrast, higher brightness, what we really have to pay attention to is ambient light in the theater. And that's going to be a huge issue as we move forward, because we're going to be able to project those great blacks. But if all those stairlights, because of antiquated exit laws and fire marshal laws, obviously it has to be safe. We have to be very careful of that as we build out, because you won't get that great experience in that storytelling if you can't see it like the filmmaker saw when he finished it in a proper venue. So we've got to think about ambient light big time as we move forward.
To answer your question, I think the current theater, projection systems are going to turn out in 5 or 10 years to be inadequate. I think we're just not going to have the dynamic range. We're not going to have the gamut. I think P3 gamut is, we're going to have to expand beyond it in ways that, some people do in various theaters, but I think it's just the beginning.
Right, but remember, these gentlemen, exhibition has spent a lot of money very recently, and they didn't spend money for 40 years on a projector. They think they're going to last. But if as Rob said, if you capture at a very high, dynamic range and resolution, they're a 2K projector. If the lamp is right, and if the optics are clean and it's focused, there's no ambient light, in the theater, they'll have still a pretty good presentation 5 years from now.
Agreed. But still, it's going to be dimmer though than when somebody starts with a laser. You know,
I'm sorry,
14.
I'm sorry, Steve, but in 1981, when I saw Black Stallion in the theater at 16-foot Lamberts on a film screen, it looked pretty freaking awesome. And nobody was going out, oh, Caleb Deschanel cinematography is so lacking because it's not at 40-foot Lamberts. I just...
No, but have you been in a 3D movie where it's like sub
3D?
It
must be
3?
right there.
Okay, all right. But you have been in a theater where you go, God, that was dark.
Yeah.
Okay, so...